Hello YouTube. So finally, after a long period of playing badly, my rating is back up over 2400 on Blitz on chess.com, which is a good rating. Although some of the games that I got there with were not great games. This last game that I played was pretty atrocious. Um, I played really badly, and especially in the opening, and I got into a lot of trouble, and I managed to scrap that one out. The game that actually got me up over 2400 was actually really good. And I think this is actually reasonably instructive as to kind of how I approach certain types of openings and just what your options are in certain types of positions. This was this early A6 in this position, which is known as the O'Kelly variation. And one of the ideas behind this is it's kind of aimed against D4. And the point is in D4, since you can't move your knight to the b5 square, you're going to have to put your knight someplace passive and kind of pathetic. And that's going to give black an opportunity to play for d5 kind of in one go is one of the concepts. So this is actually a really difficult position to play against. If you're playing the white pieces, you can't just play, really you shouldn't play your normal d4, you should play something else. So what you should try to do is transpose into some system where a6 is kind of a wasted move. And the two main options to do that are c3 and c4, I think is what most people pick. They go into like either a Maroczy bind with c4, where they're going to follow up with d4 later and get a Maroczy bind, or they can play like a c3 Sicilian, and then they're going to end up, a6 is not a terribly useful move in the c3 Sicilian. So c3 is kind of another option. I went with a third option, which is a lot lesser played, but it's easier for me because it gives me a lot less to prepare in terms of my opening preparation. Since I already have a lot of King's Indian attack positions in my opening repertoire, and since the O'Kelly variation is so rare, and I play this position in other situations, I went ahead and just transposed it immediately to a KIA. So now I'm playing the KIA where a6 is not, it's not a bad move, but it's not a very useful move in terms of the way people usually play the KIA in the Sicilian structure, because usually people will end up playing b5, b4, and then once they play b5, b4, they usually will play a5. So this pawn is effectively going to have to two-step. It's going to have to go from a6 to a5 later. It's just one tempo, but you know, if you're already a KIA player and they're going to give you an extra tempo, why not? So that's what I do. I just play d3 and go into the KIA. And then we just start going into our formations. I'm playing a normal kind of KIA position. And one of the things I like to do is I like to position my queen on e2, and then I usually like to chuck in h4, and then like at that point I kind of see where I'm at. Especially against the fianchetto formation, h4 is like a really useful move. So after castles, I chuck in h4. I'm threatening to play h5 and break up the position around the king. But the other thing I'm threatening to do is I'm threatening to play this, if you notice like similarities in pawn structure to another opening, this is actually very similar to a Ruy Lopez. You're going to end up using this c3, d3 pawn duo to play d4. And that's one of the reasons I like my queen on e2. I like to support the e4 square, but also sometimes I like to shuffle this rook to d1, get it on the same file as his queen, and then engineer the move pawn to d4, which is going to take a little bit more engineering because he's got quite a bit of stuff aiming at this square. So there can be a battle for the d4 square, but of course there's no obligation for white to play d4, and white can certainly do other things, like, for example, start initiating some play against the black king. So there's like a multitude of plans here that you have to be familiar with. So he plays one of the typical moves here. He plays b5, and then I play a4, so if he plays b4 here, he's going to give my knight a square, and then I can continue playing for d4 at some point. And if he doesn't, then I'm going to go ahead and exchange and get rid of my least useful piece right now, my rook on a1, which wasn't going to be involved at all if I initiated kingside play, which is what I do next. So now the only thing I have left are pieces that can get to the kingside, and I'm initiating kingside play. And then here I got lucky because my opponent played a move that's probably pretty bad. If white starts initiating kingside play, he played d5, which you can see the bar went up quite a bit, and it's a pretty big positional error, because once I take, all of my pieces are going to be able to get at this black king, and I'm already breaking up the pawn structure. And actually, even though it turned out really well for me, I actually misplayed it a little bit. So this much I did right, and I got my knight here hitting this pawn. This makes it really awkward for him, because he's going to end up putting his queen on a really awkward square. And when he does that, it's not clear how he can fix that. So his queen is not helping with any kind of defense other than just this pawn on c5. So then I exchange, loosen up that king side, and I play knight g5. And this was really good, just getting all the pieces kind of in that direction. And then this is a little embarrassing. So he plays b4, which is like a game-losing mistake. And I play a move that's good. It's just not great. I was actually this was the original idea I was looking at, so I kind of got locked in and stuck on this idea. I played the move knight d6, which is actually a good move. I mean, it maintains my advantage. I'm still at plus 1.81. And it turned out even better than that, because he responded to it poorly. He lost a piece. He played knight d8, and then, of course, this knight is hanging after I take on b7, because if he takes with the knight, I take the knight for free, and if he takes with the queen, I play c4, and that's how the game ended. He resigned. But I'm really kind of a little perturbed at myself, because I missed just continuation of the attack with the move queen g4, which apparently would have been really strong. And I think in the game, initially, I thought, well, maybe he has something like f6, but of course he doesn't, because I have queen e6, followed by queen h3, followed by queen h7, which would be mate. So he doesn't have f6. And also, it was hard for me to see any follow-up, okay, what if I play queen h4 and queen h7? Well, if he does nothing, and I play queen h4, queen h7, and then he just, shuffles his king to f8, where do I go from there? So, what if he just plays something like this, queen h4, and then say, shuffles his rook over to b8? Well, it turns out, I couldn't really see anything right here, but of course I'm also not Stockfish. So Stockfish found this move, which is really good. Just knight takes f7, just to break through. King takes f7, knight g5, and we just come into here. And we're picking up this bishop on g7 no matter what. But Stockfish doesn't even like taking it right away. After king f8, it just wants to continue the attack with queen g6. But of course, it's also still possible to play knight e6 and just immediately, start winning this material. So we can play king e7, we can play queen takes, and they don't really have this option available. They can't play taking the knight. If they take the knight, they're getting mated with bishop h3. So bishop h3 here, here. So this was really the idea I missed. So it seems like every game I missed something. So this was kind of the idea I missed. But on the whole, for the game to put me up over 2400, this was still a pretty clean game. My accuracy was in the 80s. And that's a pretty good thing to have. So my last game wasn't nearly as good. So my last game was this one. Right here, 68.4%. This was just an atrocious opening on my part. So he plays a Kali. I play bishop f5. He plays c4, c6, takes. So far, so good. I play knight c6. I guess no problems here. And then knight c3, I play a6. a6 is still okay. I'm keeping him out of b5. I'm kind of playing it safe. And then he threw me for a loop here. He played this early g4. And then my response was pretty horrible. I could have just played knight takes e5, and apparently this is just equal. This is fine. Knight takes e5, and then if he takes here, we have bishop takes g4 is nearly like winning. So if you play d takes e5, you can see the assessment just goes towards black. We have just knight takes g4 is going to be a free pawn, so that's going to be fine. So when you take on e5, they pretty much have to take here, and then you just shuffle the knight back, and that appears that's just either just equal or just advantage, maybe a very slight advantage black. He's going to have a hard time developing this bishop, and this pawn is kind of awkward. So that's what I missed, and what I played just led to just horrible things for this poor bishop. So he plays h4, and I realize now I'm in trouble. I don't have a good move here. I can't take, because when the pawn takes back, he's hitting the knight, and he's going to be winning this piece. So the best I can do is just try to keep the material as even as possible and just play for counterplay later. So I have to play a disgusting position, so I don't want to lose a whole piece. So I have to play h5, which the computer doesn't like. It wanted me to play h6, but either way, I just have to save this piece. So I end up with this very, very ugly position, very ugly pawn structure, and I'm probably just lost here. But my only goal now is just like, if I can play check and I can castle and I can just get my pieces active, maybe I'll be okay. So I'm getting a little bit of activity here. My opponent still is playing like really well. And again, I can't be down a piece, so I have to exchange queens, which I don't want to do. Apparently, I was better off not exchanging queens, though. I was better off just giving up this bishop. I should have played king h7, queen d4, queen d5. And I probably have quite a bit of counterplay here because I don't think he can stop me from coming in. So like if he plays rook h3, I'm coming into g2, and otherwise I'm coming into here. And I've got a lot of play here, actually. These two pieces haven't developed yet. This is probably reasonable to play for counterplay. But I did it the other way. I played the queen block and just kept the position even. And I have some counterplay here, but not much, because there's just too much material off the board. He should be able to consolidate really cleanly. So I needed a little bit of an assist here from my opponent. And even though the computer thinks king d3 is best, I think this is where he kind of starts going down the wrong path, because I managed to get his king into a position where I can kind of cause some problems. So this is the only idea I have, just open up the king, or try to. So he closes it, which makes sense, but now this pawn is an attacker. So I check him, and I was really expecting him to go back. But I mean, in either case, I should be getting something for the massive amount of material I'm down. I'm basically down just two really clean pawns here. This is really pathetic, actually. So he comes to c4, I play this check, and then he comes in, and then I'm just trying to get the rook back organized somehow to attack this king. But I mean, in no world should he be able to let me through. So yeah, I'm just trying to, you know, wedge these pieces out of here, make him scared that there's a pawn here that can do stuff. And yeah, this helps him, but it also helps me, because I mean, my position is objectively lost. I'm just trying to open up lines to get to the king, so now I have a path. So I came back and I had my path, and he kind of walked kind of face first into it. And then I got really lucky. I played rook d4, which wasn't best. I actually had a perpetual here. I could have played rook e8 right away. And I could have finagled a perpetual check, like king d7, king f7, king here, and then rook e6, king b7, and then rook d4. This was actually quite a bit better, and this leads to perpetual. So the move I played was a little bit more blatant. I thought I was really close to getting him in mate here. And apparently I wasn't. He had a saving move, and he found it. He found f7, king g7. But then he didn't find... He only has one follow-up that works. He has to play rook c1 and contest this rook's open file. And he played rook f1, which loses to mate in 3. And I did find it. I repeated moves once, and then I found the mate with rook e6. So that was a really lucky win on my part. So I had one good win, and I had one lucky win in there. And then I think the other ones were something in between. You know, I showed some skills, and you know, not some other skills. But yeah, I'm up over 2,400 again, which makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm playing, you know, semi-reasonable chess. Of course, I would always like to play better, you know, and I would always like to make fewer and fewer mistakes. But I think that's true for all of us. So, anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. You know, just me taking a look at some of my more recent games, and I hope you learned something new about chess. Thanks for watching.